I can clearly talk forever about this. But anyway, so the second set of Paiste reissues or black labels aren't just the bottom sizes. There you'll see like 22s and 16s and 14. You know, it was sort of everything. I don't know if they actually did everything that way. Maybe it was special order. Maybe they just did a few models that they were putting out there. But so there's really are two series of black label reissues. The first one was from a few years before, which is true to the bottom weights. I should say true to the 70s weights. In any case, back to cymbals and stuff. So the 2002s, they got rid of the 2002s in '86. Paiste, I don't know, got in the Coca-Cola bandwagon and said, oh, let's just get rid of the 2002s. And then they made the 200s, which were brass, the 400s, which were bronze, but real heavy cymbals that with real rough, kind of a funky lathing, just a regular lathing, but the hammering was real big. You guys, people remember this, real big hammering. That's sort of the first time they used that real big hammering. The 200s had that too, but they were brass, and they were total entry level. And then the 1000 series, the 2000, the 3000. The 1000 had green ink, because the 40, well, I should probably digress a little. Back, because it was giant beats. So they, by the way, they always say, Paiste always say they got rid of the giant beats in '71 when they started the 2002s, but that isn't true. I don't know if, maybe they were just available in Europe, but I've actually owned and seen on eBay auctions giant beats. What they did was the original giant beats, you'll see here on the 602, you always see the embossed logo at the 12 o'clock. Well, on giant beats, the Paiste logo, if you just got rid of the Formula 602 and put this logo here at the 3 o'clock, that's what giant beats, that was their logo. And over here it said giant beat in like a white stenciling. And the writing looked like, and most guys know this now because everyone's become hip to giant beats at this point, but looked like an old Western, like you saw, like General Grocery, like grocery store barber, like in 1870s pictures, or like Clint Eastwood movies, like that real funky. That's what it said, giant beat. But you'll see what they did was around because they started serial numbers, they say in '71, which is what I've seen. You know, I've never seen an. I mean, you'll see a serial number that begins with 0 with a black label. I'm sure those are from 1980, but you'll see serial number giant beats. And I actually will, if anybody has any questions about it, I have pictures. I always save, when I see eBay auctions or some pictures of stuff I save pictures, because I know there's going to be somebody there like, no, dude, that's wrong. You don't know what you're talking about. It's like, oh, yeah, well, here's the evidence. So what they did was they got rid of the giant beat logo here, and then they made it black ink, like the 2002 and the 602. What they did is black ink here. It's a Paiste giant beat. And I can't remember if it's a whatever. It was here in this location. And then they put their serial numbers. Now this is, of course, pre-serial number, but there are serial number giant beats. And I want to say I've seen giant beats with serial numbers up to 4, up to 1974. So I don't know if some of those were special order, if they were just made in smaller quantities and eventually fade them out. But they always say, you'll read in the literature, it'll say, well, they replaced the giant beats in '71 with the 2002s. But I'm sure they made them up until the latest one I've seen is the '74 serial number. And of course, then with, you know, and then I did see a '71. I'm pretty sure I saw a '71 in person. My friend Bob, who I turned into a huge Paiste fan, I think had one. Maybe it wasn't Bob, but anyway, but it had they switched the logo from the 3 o'clock to the 12 black ink. So of course the reissues they have now, which they came out with a number of years ago, have the black ink. They don't have the white ink, which doesn't matter. I mean, but so then what happened was, so then the 2002 started in '71-ish, and they had, it wasn't quite as complete as the 602 line. Again, the 602s had like, you could get like from like the 11-inch splash, I think they had like 12 or 13 all the way to 24, like individual sizes. The 2002, I don't think, maybe at first they had that. You could order like a 23-inch ride or whatever, like off the shelf, technically speaking. But then what they did is they came out with a symbol called 404 and 505, and the 404 was, and those were all B8 alloy. The 404s had black inking, like the 2002s and then the 602s, and you know, at the time through the early mid 70s, they had black inking in the same location. So instead of here, instead of like Formula 60, instead of like 602 here, I can't remember the 602. Is the 602 logo down here? Anyway, but instead of Formula 602. You know, it would say 404. It didn't say pi, it just said 404. And then 505, it just said 505. and then of course the 2002s. I think they also had, apart from just the 2002. I have some here. What the hell's the matter with me? You know, I'm such a melon. I have all kinds of 2000. So yeah, so the 2002. So yeah, it said Paiste 2002. Okay. Maybe, you know, it is possible. Maybe the early original 2002s just said 2002 like that. But in any case, I don't know. So the 404s and the 505s and then the 2002s. And of course there were Ludwig standards too. Ludwig standards were made out of almost all nickel silver. Up until the very end, I found Ludwig standards that actually physically, Ludwig standards, it's funny, like Ludwig standards and 404s to me physically look like 602s. It's funny, like, you know, the original, you know, Ludwig standards, you see the nickel silver ones, it looks like essentially a nickel silver 602, like the lathing's the same, the shape and everything. But in any case, the 404s were B8 bronze, as were the 505s and the 2002s. But the 404s were really thin, so if you got like a 14-inch, the original, you'd see like a 14-inch, just say hi-hat on it. At that time, there wasn't medium and heavy offered, it was just hi-hat. I kind of have a catalog here I could show you. And the same with the 505s. And you'll see black label 404s all the time, or you used to. I've rarely seen black label 505s, every now and then. I own one. There's one over here somewhere. Bear with me. I'm still with you. A 505, right here. Okay. Now this is a. Okay, here's a. This is a very rare, well, in my opinion, rare, because you just never see them. A black label 505. But you know what's funny about this symbol though? This is a 71. So maybe I guess it didn't just say 505. Maybe it did say Paiste. I guess I don't know. But you know what's funny about this? Is this actually symbol is stamped, embossed, Stambul. So I don't know if they. So it's a heavy. So maybe this is right at the changeover. To the 505s, like when they were switching, when they got rid of the Stambul. I think they probably got rid of the Stambul. Well, I would imagine around 1970, because this one is a 1971 stamp, serial number stamp, and it's a heavy. And it is a heavy. I mean, it's a heavy symbol. I mean, this probably weighs. This symbol definitely weighs more than an 18-inch early 70s 2002 ride. I mean, it definitely does. I can just tell I've held enough of them. But anyway, this is a really cool symbol, and I bought this simply because I, at the time, had never seen a black label 505. I always saw the 404s and the 2002. So I just had to have this. I want to say I bought this on eBay. It might have been before eBay. For at the time, pretty good money, just because I wanted to have a black label. But I was shocked to see it said Stambul. I don't know if you can see that. But it says Stambul. So maybe they had a bunch of Stambuls left over. Again, the Stambul 67s or 65s were the first B8 alloy that Paiste did. So maybe they had a bunch of left over of these Stambuls and then just put 505 on them until they started making them and labeling them 505. Anyway, it's a cool symbol. See, it says 18 in black ink here. It's a cool symbol. It really does, to me, look almost identical to a 602. It's just that it's B8 alloy. Of course, the furnace kicks on, so hopefully you can hear me. Anyway, so the 404s were so like a when I realized that, you know, Paiste and other companies too, you can see it was Zildjian too. They beefed the cymbals up over the years because there was a lot of breakage, and also too the cymbals weren't cutting it with the louder music. So in any case, the 404s were really thin cymbals. If you see a 404 from like mid 70s, a black label, which I have a bunch here. I'll take my word for it. They're really thin. They're relatively thin. A 404 ride. And of course the 404 was a very limited, you know, the lower lines always have, like, they'd have a hi-hat, crash, ride. You know what I mean? And the 505 is a step up. They might have medium hi-hat, heavy hi-hat, crash, medium, you know, so there's more to offer, you know. But anyway, I found, and I don't have a lot of experience with, again, with the black label 505s, but I do know with the black label 404s, of course, into the brown label 404s, which they changed over about 81, I think. From black label 404s and 505s to brown label 404s and green label 505s, is that the 404s are thinner generally than the 505, or thinner than the 505s, and the 505s thinner than the 2002. I don't think for any sonic, I mean, just it's less metal. You know what I mean? So they were cheaper. But I do know that if you were to take a 404, a black label 404, or at least, you know, an earlier black label 404 with a brown label 404, the brown label is heavier. Not by much, but it is heavier. And my personal feeling is black label 404s they're terrible. Well, not terrible. They're really thin, and a lot of that B8 alloy, especially on those lower lines, is real real soft. You'll see around the bell there's a lot of dents and stuff. And I don't know if that's on purpose, if they left out one of the ingredients or something, but the 404s, but once you get to the 404s, like the brown labels, and actually I might have had a 404 black label that was a pretty good crash. They're darker because they're thinner, but the 404s, in my opinion, the 404s, if you want a really good, a good Paiste, affordable B8 crash, a 20-inch crash, I'd say get a 20-inch 404 ride, because it's about the same weight. It's thinner, so it's more crashy. And then an 18-inch, if you can find a medium, that's a really good cymbal. Relative. So, in my opinion, in 404berg, what you want to do, 404ville, is if you can find like a pair of the medium hats, even the brown label medium hats to me are a little thin, but so I either get the medium or the heavy hats. I did have a pair of 15-inch medium 404 brown label hats and a pair of 15-inch heavy. And I did like the medium hats, but the heavies were really nice too. And I got those new old stock on eBay. Somebody was selling them. They had a bunch of pairs. And of course, I played them for a week and I sold them. That's how I acquired so many cymbals, because they just go through. Anyway, but in 404 land, I recommend the heavy 14-inch hats, the 15-inch hats, the medium 15-inch hats. I don't think they made 13s. I've never seen them. This is a 22-inch. The ride that I play here is a 22-inch 404 ride model, and it's awesome. It's real jazzy. I know a lot of guys, diss B8 alloy for jazz, but I'm telling you, especially when the Giant Beats came out, man, I think it's a great alloy. But I don't want to digress on that there. But I think also too in the later, because I found a catalog I had from like 85-ish. And they might have even had a 22-inch medium model too. But the 22-inch ride is awesome. It's ridey, but it's real washy. Anyway, on to the 505s. Let me check the time here. See, as you know, I can babble forever. Okay, 505s. God knows I have a bunch of them. Brown label 404. Great symbol. Ride, 20-inch ride. Okay, so here in 505ville, in Paiste 505 land, I find that the 18-inch crash model, this is an 18-inch crash, is to me the best sounding 18-inch crash, B8 crash that Paiste made. I know it sounds crazy. I've had a lot of, I mean, of course you'd have, the odd 2002, I don't know, I guess maybe consistently. I've almost never found an 18-inch 505 crash model that isn't awesome. And you can still pick these. I don't know now. Actually, I looked on eBay the other day. The green label 505s are starting to go for more dough, but people used to give these frickin' things away. I honestly have 8 or 9 of these. I'm not kidding. There's another one right over there. Because how it is with me, as you can see with all my stuff, like I'll find something, I'll buy it. I'm obsessive compulsive. Then I got to get a backup for it. I'll keep this one at the house. I'll play this one out. But then I get a backup for the backup, and then a backup for the backup, and then a backup for the backup. Next thing you know, you have 8 of these, or 9. And I've had more. I've sold some. It's embarrassing. Anyway, so this is, so in 18-inch, so in 505ville, my opinion, a 16-inch medium, a green label medium is a really good symbol. A 16-inch crash is pretty thin. A 16-inch medium is about the same weight to me, from what I found, is a 16-inch 2002 crash of those days. So again, when you go up a line, it's you sort of, if you go from like 404, a 404 20-inch ride to me is about the same weight as a 505 medium, and then to a 2002 20-inch crash. So generally they get heavier as you get higher. Anyway, this is a 505 medium, and it's funny with people. Actually, this is I have a couple of these. I have 3 of these, and I think this is the one I was going to get rid of. because it decays a little fast. I don't know if you can hear that, but it kind of like shh, and it kind of goes, which a lot of guys might like. And of course, this is a 505 before they have the. You know what's so funny about this? This is bizarro. This one doesn't have a serial number. It just says Paiste 505. So somebody at the factory must have left the serial number off here. Gotta call those guys. Anyway, but so a 20-inch crash of 505 is good too. It's a little thin for me, so it's not as loud. But a 20-inch, if you can find a 20-inch 505 crash, or definitely a 20-inch 505 medium, they're awesome cymbals. Total bottom, total projection. Again, 18s go for the crash model. An 18-inch medium 505 is good too. It gets a little heavier. And a 16-inch medium model. So just those sizes. I was never too keen on the 505 hats, although that 14-inch pair I had was good. This bottom cymbal actually is a 505. The top is an alpha. Anyway, that's going to be another video. But yeah, so 505s, great cymbals. And actually, too, again, real fast before I make another video, I had for a long time, I love a 2002 22-inch ride. Now, the one I had was from the, now it's hard, when I talk about, you know, cymbals getting heavier, it's hard for me to say, because I had Black Label 22-inch rides, and they were a little thin for me. And then, of course, they had the heavy ride, that even back in the day, in the 70s, the heavy ride was heavy no matter how you sliced it. It was heavy ride, and the hammering was real heavy. It was real pingy, like no matter what. So that, but what I found was, I did have a 22-inch 2002 ride. I think that I bought new in 05. That was a great one. Of course, I sold it, because it was a little too thin for me, I felt. And I actually recorded a couple of CDs with the bands I was with at the time. If you hear it, it sounds awesome. I mean, the cymbals do. Well, my drumming isn't so bad. But anyway, real fast, I found I was curious about, you know, when I talk about the nature of 404s being thinner and 505s being a little heavier and 2002s being heavier, by the nature of the lines, less metal, whatever. I got my hands on a 505 22-inch heavy ride. And the heavy ride, of course, since it has less metal than the 2002 heavy ride, was just a teeny bit heavier than a 2002 ride. So to me, it was like exactly what I was looking for. It was like, boy, this 2002 ride, I wish it was just a little heavier. Well, I found a 505 heavy ride that was otherwise built the exact same way. Again, I mean, to me, the 505s, the only way that the 505s really differ from the 2002s really is the lathing, to me. I think the bells sometimes are a little bigger on the 505s. I think they use a slightly bigger bell, but the lathing, with this Paiste cymbals, there's a fine lathing, and then they have a secondary lathing. On the 2002s, you'll see it, it's like bandy, like it's, like you can see here. See, like there's like the finer lathing, and then you see this heavier lathing. And in the 2002s, it's like it gets tight and it gets loose. It's almost like they do it kind of randomly. Well, in the 505s, you'll always see it. It doesn't do that. It's always evenly spaced, like do, you know. In any case, so that's the 505s. So my advice, if you want some good 505s, they're great cymbals. You got to find those things. They're awesome. Again, I prefer a heavy ride. They might even made a power ride even there. They introduced the power thing in the 80s. Anyway, so that's that.